What's up, hockey fans? Welcome to the Wraparound brought to you by the Hockey News. I'm your host, Emma Lingan. I am joined today by Michael Augello and Jim Parsons of the Hockey News, coming at you during these playoffs to talk about all of the latest and greatest storylines from around the Stanley Cup playoffs and elsewhere in the hockey world. Before we do get into all of that today, do want to remind you that for over 75 years, the Hockey News has been the ultimate hockey fix. Now get 12 issues delivered straight to you, packed with stories, stats, and a bonus gift issue to kick things off. Head over to thn.com and get in on the action. All right, guys. Well, I want to start with Vegas because I was up late on Monday night watching that game. Very back and forth, very exciting game. Ultimately, Vegas took it in OT. They tied the series with the Utah Mammoth at 2-2. Overtime goal from Shea Theodore is what sealed it for them. The Golden Knights came out loud. They were hot. They scored 3 consecutive goals, and it looked like Utah was maybe out of it until they weren't. Then they gave up 4 unanswered goals of their own, and they were fortunate to come out with a victory in this one. But Mike, even if Vegas manages to come out on top in this series, are you confident that they have what it takes to make a deep run?
No, I'm not. And because there's a lot of flaws with the Golden Knights, and those flaws revealed themselves during the regular season and caused Bruce Cassidy to get fired late in the season. I'm a little surprised that they went back to Carter Hart after giving up 4 goals on 12 shots in game 3 and giving Utah the lead in the series. And like you said, it was sort of a back and forth battle. I think Vegas is going to have trouble beating Utah. I picked Utah in an upset of that series because Utah is faster, they're younger, and if they get good enough defensive play and good enough goaltending, I think they can beat Vegas, who is a flawed team right now.
Jim, what do you think? Do you think Vegas has what it takes if they can get past Utah? What's the rest of the playoffs going to look like for them?
I guess it depends on how you define deep, but I believe if they get past Utah, they can probably get past Edmonton or Anaheim. Beyond that, I don't see them getting past Colorado, Minnesota, or Dallas. I just don't see that being a competitive series. But Anaheim series and Edmonton series, which clearly I'm watching closely, has been a total surprise to everybody, right? The Oilers are not healthy. Anaheim is scoring like crazy. They're a young team playing on house money, and they're doing really well. They're going to score regardless of who they're going to play. The question is, can they stop goals from going in? Because even as bad as the Oilers have been, they've been scoring a lot. So it's hard to know if Vegas, if they get past Utah, will have much trouble with Anaheim or Edmonton. I think they have a chance to win that series. But I think once you get into the Colorados and the Dallas and the Minnesotas, it wouldn't shock me at all if that's a 4 or 5 game series going the other way and Vegas is eliminated.
Well, the series right now between Utah and Vegas, very exciting, very close. As I mentioned, it's tied now. And, with Utah, goaltending had been a key aspect of their game. I think if you look at Karel Vejmelka, he had been playing really well for Utah through the first 3 games of the series, as was to be expected. But his postseason save percentage has kind of plummeted now below 900 after he allowed 5 goals on 36 shots back on Friday. So Vejmelka now has an .899 save percentage, and Carter Hart for Vegas now has an .886 save percentage through 5 games. So not sure that we could say that this is exactly a battle of the goaltenders here. But Mike, with the Mammoth clearly having no trouble scoring goals so far, how much do you think Vejmelka's play is going to ultimately dictate how far they make it in these playoffs?
I think Vejmelka played pretty well in the first 3 games. I didn't think he was particularly strong in game 4. I mean, obviously, the team that wins the goaltending battle, 9 times out of 10, wins the series unless the team can't score. But I do think that, Utah needs more offense out of their top players. And that's where, Vegas is still a very good defensive team. I mean, I don't think they have the speed advantage because I think Utah, with their young legs, has that advantage. But if Vegas can limit their offense, and it's going to come down to goaltending. And I think Vejmelka is stronger than Hart or Aiden Hill if they have to go to him, but he has to play like he did in the first 3 games for them to have a chance to win the series.
Yeah, I mean, Jim, this is kind of something that it was maybe, at least I was wondering, is this something that's going to come back to haunt Utah? Because Vejmelka was one of the, if not the most overused goaltender in the NHL throughout the regular season. So you have to wonder, is that going to start to catch up with them in the playoffs, or do you think that he bounces back to his normal self here?
Well, it kind of looks like it, but then again, it's just one game that we're looking at his play in game 4 and going, hey, that wasn't good. The problem with Melka is that when he's bad, he's really not very good. Like, he's got a very high ceiling and he's got a really low floor. So when he's not playing well, he's very scrambly. His lateral movement is really not good. Like in game 4, Vegas essentially won that game twice. If not for an offside, they would have scored earlier in overtime, right? And the goals that he did allow were not pretty. So when he is not playing well, that could be a real problem for Utah. Now, the response to game 4 and how he played in game 4, we'll find out in game 5 what that looks like. If he rebounds, I don't think it's going to be a huge issue for Utah. But if he doesn't, this is the kind of goaltender who, when things go poorly, could really fall off a cliff, could plummet badly. And if that happens, then Utah is in real trouble. Now, they've got a lot of ability to score, as you mentioned. They've got some really good young players. But when you have to outscore your problems, that becomes a real issue, right? And if Vejmelka can kind of put it together again and find his game after what was probably a lackluster game 4 for him, they should be all right. But the one thing about him, and as little as I've watched Utah this season, when I do watch him and he's struggling, it's not pretty. So that's the biggest issue for him, is that he needs to not get in his own head, not get flustered by the fact that he did not have a strong game. And that can't be an impact on him going forward.
Yeah, still, again, saw the fight from Utah, and being able to come back and tie that game, end up bringing it to overtime in game 4, shaping up to be a really exciting series. Another series now that I want to talk about, which was looking not exciting until all of a sudden it was, is Pittsburgh and Philly. I mean, the Penguins have managed to keep their season alive. They won over the Flyers 3-2 in game 5 of their series. So they've now won 2 straight winner go home games. The Penguins have, coming back from a 3-0 deficit. They're now at 3-2. They have one last chance to force a game 7 against Philadelphia now. Sidney Crosby, of course, led the way with his second consecutive multi-point game. Of course, both of those games were wins for Pittsburgh in this series. So he had 2 assists in game 5. And, Mike, much has been said, including here on the show. We've said it about this series being youth versus experience. And, the longer this series goes, at first it was starting to look like, okay, well, clearly youth is winning in this series. But now, as the chances increase for this to get to a game 7, how much do you think the momentum sort of shifts in the favor of a veteran Pittsburgh team?
It's like Lazarus rising from the grave. I mean, you look at this series and you have to, sometimes things that the fans do, they shouldn't do because they're sort of counting their chickens before they're hatched. And when the fans in Philadelphia are chanting a expletive before Crosby's name in game 4, I mean, you're just providing fuel to a team. I don't care if they're down 3-0. They were the more experienced team coming into the series, and a lot of people thought, and I particularly thought, that Pittsburgh would win the series in 7 games. Now, the only way that happens is if we have a 20-10 in reverse. And if you remember, Boston was up 3-0 on Philadelphia, and Philadelphia came back for only the 4th time in NHL history and won in 7 games. If Pittsburgh goes to Philly and wins game 6, all the pressure is on Philadelphia right now, and that youth that was an advantage earlier in the series now might be a detriment to them because they don't have the experience of being in a win or nothing, or win or get out games. Pittsburgh has lots of it. So if they win game 6, my prediction of Pittsburgh in 7 may actually come to pass.
Jim, do you think that's a realistic expectation that Pittsburgh bounces back from this and now wins 4 in a row to take the series in 7?
I don't know that they'll win this series. I did kind of go in the last time I was on the show, and I said it might be too early for predictions to say Pittsburgh's going to win it. I did pick Pittsburgh, and I thought I was going to look like a fool because it was 3-0 for Philadelphia, and I was like, oh man, I shouldn't have opened my mouth. But you're all right. Like, as long as this goes and continues, I think it favors Pittsburgh. Now, when you're down 3-0, the odds, as Michael just pointed out, are so slim to come back and win 4 in a row in any series that it really would be challenging. And when you are talking about experience, you're talking about guys who have the will, have the passion, have the experience, but they will get tired, right? And you got to remember too, Pittsburgh has made a goalie change, right? They started with Stuart Skinner for the first 3. Now they're going Artur Silovs, and it looks good right now, but he's also a goaltender who there are question marks about. So all Philly needs is one game, right? They just need one more game, one solid effort. Pawtucket needs to get something out of that group, but there's a lot of question marks on that side too. And we're about to talk about one of those players coming up here right away. It's really tough to know. I think the odds are not stacked to help Pittsburgh out here, and I think that probably will give Philly the edge. And going down 3-0, it hurts. But I think this could be one where it goes 7. I think Crosby and company have a lot to say before they're eliminated. But I do ultimately think the Flyers are probably going to win this one now.
Well, like you said, with goaltending, unfortunately, Stuart Skinner still not beating the allegations of being unable to perform in the playoffs. And as you well know, Jim, with goaltending in the playoffs, especially, you got to ride the hot hand. Right now, that's Silovs for Pittsburgh. But you mentioned Rick Tocchet needing to get, another level out of these guys in Philadelphia. So one of the guys, as you mentioned, that we need to talk about is Matvei Michkov. He was scratched by Rick Tocchet against the Penguins in Game 5. He has failed to record a point in his first 4 playoff games with the Flyers, and he's seen his minutes drop to an average ice time of just over 10 minutes. That's down from his almost 15-minute regular season average, so that's pretty stark. Michkov's he was the 7th overall pick in 2023. He fell short on expectations in his second season. He had just 20 goals, 31 assists in 81 games. That's down from 26 goals and 37 assists in his rookie year. So a little bit of a sophomore slump for him. Mike, do you think Michkov can be a difference maker for this Flyers team right now? And what do you make of the decision to bench him in Game 5?
Well, I think the decision to bench him was because he doesn't have the trust of Rick Tocchet to be efficient defensively. I mean, he's very gifted, but he hasn't produced. He's playing, I think, on a 3rd line. He's not conducive to playing on a 4th line. So if you don't play him, the only thing you really have to do is replace him on the power play. 5-on-5, I think he has been a liability in this series, and that's a little bit of a surprise. But I think right now, Tocchet looked at it and he was being conservative and saying, okay, I'd rather have a player who I can trust defensively. Now that you've lost 2 games and you're 3-2 going back to Philadelphia, going back to Philadelphia, you can control the situation where you can match them up in the offensive zone faceoffs and against matchups that you think are more advantageous. So it's very possible, since they lost the game when he was scratched, that he'll be back in Game 6. But if it goes to 7 games, I wouldn't think that he's going to play in a Game 7.
Yeah, I mean, Jim, you alluded to it earlier, but what do you think Michkov's impact will be, if any, in the remainder of this series?
I'm not sure he's going to have any, to be honest with you. You've got Alex Bump coming in, scoring in his first game to replace Michkov. You have Michkov starting on the 4th line in this series. This is the second coach now who has had issues trying to get him to play a style of hockey that the Flyers want him to play. You've got communication issues, so anytime that you're trying to teach Michkov how to play the style you want, and it's not his fault, but he struggled to grasp the message. And there's already rumors. I can't imagine that they're confirmed, or they're probably totally unfounded, that he's unhappy, that he's going to want to trade, that he left the building during that game. Like, there's all sorts of stuff out there now. And that's what you get with a superstar potential talent like Michkov, who isn't in your game plan. And so I don't know if the Flyers view him, at least in this stage in his career, as somebody who is going to be the spark. Like, if any other player who has the talents and gifts that Michkov has, Tocchet could look at him and go, all we got to do is put him in one game, get 1 goal, the series is over. I don't know that Tocchet sees him that way, right? And so if that's the case, then you probably won't call on him to be the reason that the Flyers can eliminate the Penguins. And if that's the case, then what does Michkov do for you moving forward? And that's a real question mark for me. I don't know now that this being the second coach and the same sort of messaging and the same sort of communication issues, I'm curious to see what the future is going to be for him there. I think they have a high ceiling. I think there's a lot of patience for him. I'm not sure that the player and his agent have the same level of patience. And so it'll be very interesting to see where this future goes. As far as the series go, I don't know that I see him being an impact player at all.
Well, we'll have to see what happens there. And if Philadelphia does make it past Pittsburgh, we'll see if we end up seeing Michkov again in these playoffs at this point, like you said. And, we talked about, obviously, Flyers, Penguins. That series has taken somewhat of a surprising turn. Now it looked over until it didn't. Another series, which, again, Jim, you alluded to earlier, is the Oilers and Ducks. I mean, that series has been a surprise in the way that it's played out so far. The Oilers have given up 20 goals to the Ducks in their first 4 games, which is 5 more than any other team in the playoffs. Their penalty kill is operating at just 50%. They're averaging the second most goals for the postseason, but they're still giving up 5 goals a game. So unfortunately, that much, not really a surprise. We've talked before about the Oilers having defensive issues that they would need to outscore in these playoffs. But Jim, in your opinion, what is the biggest reason that the Oilers haven't been able to slow Anaheim down?
Well, in the first 3 games, it was definitely special teams. It was the penalty kill, and that's remained an issue. The Oilers have not been good down a man. Part of that is because they lost Adam Henrique, which is a big penalty killer for them. Jason Dickinson was there and a question mark, and he's been back, but he's not healthy. He's a game time decision tonight. You've got players like McDavid who are injured, and he's a game time decision tonight. He was not on the ice this morning for pregame skate. Leon Draisaitl still dealing with something. Zach Hyman's still dealing with something. Like, there's a lot going on in Edmonton, right? I'm not suggesting those are excuses, because the Oilers have played really lousy hockey. Like, that's just they've not been very good. And you cannot come into a series like this. We all sort of assumed that this was going to be kind of a given. Like, this was going to be a team, an inexperienced Anaheim who could score a lot, but had a terrible penalty kill, was brutal defensively. And they've proven that they've figured out a way to shut down and clog McDavid, who, while hurt and dealing with something, has not been an impact player at all. So Anaheim has figured this out. They're looking really strong. The Oilers do not look like the team that could potentially get out of this series, and now they're down 3-1. So there's a lot going on here. There's injuries, there's penalty kill issues, there's 5-on-5 play where they've scored a lot, but they've also not, limited the chances against. And tonight, it sounds like all the defensive pairings are being switched up. So this is kind of a last-ditch effort here, I think, by head coach Chris Knoblauch to try to figure out how to stay in this series. And if you're coming into the game, maybe no McDavid, maybe no Dickinson, no Henrique, no Max, like, these guys are all dealing with something. And now Ingram's coming back in to start again after Jari came in and played okay, but had that weird overtime goal, right? So there's a lot going up against the Oilers right now. So they're scrambling to stay alive here. And this has been a very unexpected series and a very unexpected way of the Oilers playing, especially given how they came into it. The last 10 to 15 games of the season, they were much better. They'd sort of flipped the switch. And maybe they took Anaheim too lightly. I don't know. Or maybe they came in and they were dealing with issues that we didn't realize were as bad as they seem to be now. But yeah, I think the Oilers are in trouble here. And I think there's been a lot going wrong. The penalty kill started all of it, still an issue, but just defensively, they've not been very good.
Yeah. Mike, before the playoffs, coming into the playoffs, this series in particular was one that, if you asked me how it was going to go, I don't know that I really had an answer of who was going to come out on top or how it was going to go. But I will say I did not expect Edmonton to be down 3-1 this early in the series. That much I can say. So what do you think has been the reason? I mean, Jim just really kind of covered a lot of it in terms of the issues that the Oilers have had. But anything else that you've noticed in just their inability to just really shut Anaheim down?
Well, amongst that litany of reasons, I would say, primarily the injury issue is tops. And if you look at it, I mean, the Florida Panthers played 6 extra months over the last 3 seasons. And this year, during the regular season, that really came to pass. This year, a team that has played, 4.5 to 5 months of extra games in the Edmonton Oilers, plus their best and second best player played in the Olympics, I think had a detrimental effect on them. And, if Connor McDavid, I mean, they'll have to tie him down not to play, but if he is ineffective, or if he's affected by what I think is a high ankle sprain, then they really have no other choice. I mean, Anaheim is a dynamic offensive team. They've been that way all year. They're not playing the LA Kings, who couldn't score, and the LA Kings had them down 2-0, if I'm not wrong, Jim. I mean, this is a team that in the first round has had issues, but they've been bailed out by playing against a team that they had their number. This year, even though Anaheim came into the playoffs not playing well, they just turned it on, and they have Joel Quenneville as their coach, and all that guy has done is win cups. So all that put together, I picked Anaheim in an upset because I didn't think Edmonton could shut them down, and right now they're on the precipice of winning that series.
The one thing I will say that is different for the Oilers this year than in past seasons, or at least it appears to be, is that the Oilers have sort of paced themselves in October and November and kind of flipped a switch. It does not look like they can do that this year. Like, this just feels like a team who, while maybe pacing themselves and going, you know what, these early months don't matter, we'll turn it on in January or after the Olympic break in this season. They were kind of not unable to do that, and it feels like they can't do that now. Like, this is just a team who normally can go, okay, we're going to be better now. We're just going to apply better systems. We're going to be better defensively. We're going to just be a more solid team. They're unable to do that with either the injuries that are going on or the depth on this roster that's no longer there. They just can't flip the switch. And I think that has been a real wake-up call for the team this season, and that could be what ultimately undoes them in the playoffs. But it's been a stark difference from the past couple seasons where they've just decided to be a better team. It doesn't look like they can do that this year.
Well, it could be headed for the first time in a couple of years now that we are not going to see Edmonton in the Stanley Cup final if things continue to go this way for the Oilers. Of course, we'll have to see what happens there with the Stanley Cup playoffs being the center of the hockey world right now. There's still a lot going on outside of the playoffs, a lot going on behind the scenes, teams looking for new executives in their front offices. And Elliot Friedman actually reported on Monday that Maple Leafs legend Mats Sundin is pondering a potential role in the team's front office. So, Mike, do you think that Sundin could provide a spark to the Leafs organization? And what role do you see him being impactful in if he were to take on that responsibility?
Well, this is a guy, he's a Hall of Famer, and he clearly loves the Leafs, but he has never done anything in terms of management, in terms of being, at least Brendan Shanahan back in 2014 when he joined the team, he served as the head of the Department of Player Safety. He worked for the league for a number of years, and he was pretty much a figurehead with power. I don't know how much power Sundin is going to have, and what Elliott reported on Monday was that he was still pondering what role and whether he's interested in something with more gravitas. I mean, I would hesitate based on, now we don't know what that role is. We don't know who is going to serve under him. There's been rumors of John Chaika, the former Arizona GM, and Scott White, the the current assistant general manager of the Dallas Stars, being in the mix for GM. I mean, is Sundin coming in as team president, or is he coming in as a senior advisor? I don't think anybody would have a problem with him being an advisor, but if he's being brought in as a figurehead, as a team president, and he's not moving to Toronto because he lives in Sweden, I just don't know if that's anything more than just a PR move by the Leafs. So we'll see what ends up happening.
Well, and you have to admit that if any team could use some good PR right now, it's the Leafs. So, Jim, do you think that could be all this really is, more of an advisory sort of a ceremonial role, as it were, for Sundin? Or do you think that, if he were to come in a more hands-on role there, more hands-on responsibility, what kind of an impact do you think he could have?
Well, what's interesting about this is it sounds like the Maple Leafs are waiting for him to determine what he wants to do. And if that's the case, that leads me to believe that they are open to the idea of him essentially running the show, which with no experience would be an odd decision for the Maple Leafs to do without any experience. Now, I can see that if Austin Matthews says, you know what, I'm not sticking around, and they go full-blown rebuild, then they're going to have a ton of time and a lot of patience to just sort of figure this out on the fly. And as Mats Sundin learns the role, then okay, fine. And you bring in somebody to work with him. But if they're retooling or they're trying to be competitive again next season, and you bring in someone like Sundin, as great as an icon as he is in Toronto, as great as a figure as he might be leadership-wise, to ask him to turn this team around all of a sudden and be like, let's be a playoff team next season, I don't know that he's got the skill set to do it. All right. And he's also got to decide, as Michael said, does he want to take this on? How much does he want to do? Does he want to move here? Does he want to be 24/7 doing this job? Because that's what it's going to take, especially in Toronto where the spotlight is that bright and every decision matters. He's going to have to be the guy who shoulders all that responsibility. And does he want to do that? Like we've already heard someone like Jason Spezza was reached out to and asked, and he immediately said, no, I'm not ready. Like, this is not a job that I'm interested in doing right now, maybe down the road, but I'm not there yet. So if that's what he's saying, and he's already been an executive and he's working with Dubas in Pittsburgh, like what's Mats Sundin thinking, right? Like he's going, I have no experience, right? So what would I possibly bring to the table other than, as this sounds conceited, but I'm Mats Sundin, right? Like that's what he'd be bringing. So I don't know. It depends on what Toronto's planning on doing and maybe what Austin Matthews, but the fact that they're waiting for Sundin to go, this is how much I want to be involved, that feels like a step in the wrong direction right off the hop to me. Like that just feels like this Toronto Maple Leafs team still hasn't figured out how to best hire for what it is they need. And what it is they need, if they're going to retool or try to be competitive, is somebody who's got the experience to turn a team around, make trades, find players, have those connections, and Sundin doesn't have it.
Yeah, and Jim, basically, they've already decided based on what Keith Pelly has said, is that they're not rebuilding, they're retooling. So if they're retooling, then you need somebody who can hit the ground running and make the additions to their roster, either in free agency or trades, or shaking up the weeds just to find players that can join that team and help that team. And Mats Sundin has been raising his family in Sweden. It's not conducive to what they're looking for if they're looking to rebuild. That's why Chaika or White, and I particularly favor White because he's been at the right hand of Jim Nill for the last decade. They've been able to find players in the draft and in free agency that have really helped them. Sundin, to me, I guess, just a big name, a Hall of Famer, well-loved by most of Leaf fans, but he's a figurehead, and that's not what they need. They need somebody who can actually do the job.
Well, whether it's Sundin or anyone else, any former players or coaches with zero managerial experience who might be pondering something like this, all I will say is maybe take a look at Barry Trotz in Nashville and see how that worked out. Of course, want to switch gears here a little bit. Gavin McKenna and Macklin Celebrini and Matt Barzal and Morgan Riley all expected to join Canada for the World Championship next month. Mike, what do you think of this opportunity for a player like McKenna, who is draft eligible to play with, actual NHL talent alongside of him? Do you think it's going to do much to really raise his stock or lower his stock? I mean, at this point, it feels pretty much set, but what kind of an opportunity do you think this will be for him?
Well, I mean, there's still some question whether, most people in North America think he's the number one overall pick, although there's been some talk of Stenberg maybe overtaking him. And it sort of reminds me what happened in 2016, because, you had Austin Matthews and you had Patrick Laine. They both went to the World Championships before being drafted. And there was some doubt about Matthews, the Arizona kid, is how really good is he? And he put on a show at the World Championships, and I think was better than Laine. And I don't think there was any doubt that Toronto was going to take him, but I think that was the final check mark to say, okay, let's go with that guy. So I think McKenna, if he has a good showing and he's going to be playing with a lot of good players, that's only going to help his stock. And that's also going to help some of the other players, like, Morgan Riley had a bad year in Toronto. If he goes and plays in the World Championships and plays well with players other than his teammates, it's going to show him or some other teams in the league that he's not as bad as a lot of Leaf fans have been saying about him.
Jim, what do you think of this opportunity for not only for McKenna, but like Mike was saying, for some of these other players to get this opportunity playing on the world stage?
Well, for McKenna, I don't think it's going to drop his stock at all. I mean, when you look at a player like him, he's already gone the unorthodox route of going to Penn State through the nil deal. He had the aggravated assault charge, which was dropped, but it hasn't hurt his stock. Like, he's still considered the number one pick, right? So when you're putting him in with NHL players on ice, where he's getting a chance to show what he can do with players he will potentially play with or against in the next couple of seasons, that's only going to help if he plays well, right? If he doesn't play great, it's probably not going to drop his stock a whole lot for teams that are already seeing him as the number one, or other teams who might view him as maybe not the number one right now. I don't think that's really going to change anything, right? So I don't think it's going to hurt him too much. But It's just a great opportunity. But I think with other players, yeah, like anything, when you're out of the playoffs a little early, they have a chance to keep playing and maybe rebound a little bit. Yeah, like I think this is going to be the McKenna story for sure. I think if he has a really good showing, it's just going to remind people why he is what he is projected to be. And they're going to get to see for the real first time kind of what he looks like alongside players that he's going to see and play with for the next little bit.
Well, as I mentioned, one of those players, Macklin Celebrini, who's going to be joining McKenna on Team Canada at the World Championship. Celebrini was named a finalist for the Ted Lindsay Award, along with Connor McDavid and Nikita Kucherov. Of course, the award is given to the most outstanding player as voted on by their fellow players. So McDavid, of course, four-time recipient of the award, and Kucherov has won it twice. Celebrini is going to be looking to bring home his first here if he does win it. So, Mike, obviously, this is ultimately voted on by the players. We have no say in this, but who do you think, in your opinion, is deserving of the award this season?
I mean, they're all deserving, but McDavid and Kucherov are likely going to be in the Hart Trophy finalists, and I'm not sure about Celebrini, because I think he would have had to have gotten San Jose into the playoffs for him to have been in the Hart mix. I mean, I'll just say this: Kucherov is a phenomenal player, but I don't think he's well loved in the league, even though he's won this award twice, just because of his sort of caustic personality. And McDavid had a great year, but it's sort of been there, done that. He's a great player. You expect that out of him. Celebrini almost got a team that was one of the worst teams in the league into the playoffs. So if it was me, if I was a player, well, first I'd be making a lot more money, but I'll say it would be Celebrini that would get my vote.
Well, like you said, they're all deserving. I mean, I had all three on my Hart ballot. So, Jim, what do you think of this award when ultimately it is voted on by the players? But do you agree with Mike, or would you pick one of the other two finalists?
I do agree with Mike, actually. And I think the fact that this is voted on by the players is the real key here, right? Like, Celebrini has woken up everybody. Like, he has played this year to the point where every player across the league noticed what he was doing. And they've all commented on him and how good he is. And then he went to the Olympics and he was fantastic there. He has gone to the lengths where he is not, you can't not notice him. Like, that's just how good he's been, right? And so when you're a player playing against him or with him, and you realize the step that he took this season to go from last year to this year and be as good as he was and finish where he finished and the amount of points that he got and what he did for the San Jose Sharks, if you're a player, how do you not look at that and go, this kid is the future of our game, and he's already making so much noise that it's like hard to overlook him, right? And McDavid and Kucherov have been there and won that. And I'm not saying they're on the back half of their career by any stretch, but Celebrini is the future of this game, and players now know it. And when you're the one who has to vote on this, and you're looking at that, and you're going, yeah, this is the guy we're going to be dealing with for the next 10 years. I think it wouldn't be shock at all if he wins it.
Yeah, will definitely be an interesting one to keep track of. Like I said, certainly all three worthy of Hart votes as well. But Mike mentioned the playoff part of it. I mean, even though it's a regular season award, it's still getting your team to the playoffs is going to count for some of it. So we'll see what happens there. I want to wrap up today, unfortunately, on a more somber note. Former NHL goaltender and Vancouver Canucks broadcaster John Garrett has passed away. Sadly, he was 74 years old. He played for 13 years in the WHA/NHL. He spent more than 2 decades as the color commentator for the Canucks on their regional broadcasts. He was a regular presence on national NHL coverage as well. Mike, just do you have any reflections or memories of Garrett's career or his impact on the hockey world as we remember him today?
I'm old enough to remember him as a goaltender. He played primarily with Quebec and Hartford after coming over from the WHA. So they played Toronto and Buffalo a lot. So I saw him as a goaltender, and he was good, but he played for not so good teams. But he really made his mark as a color commentator. Now, I texted with Mark Askin, who's the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, and he said he worked hundreds of games with him, and he considered him a genuine soul. And that sort of came out in the way he was in broadcasts. I mean, he had the expertise of being a former player, but he was just a genuinely friendly guy, and he was always humorous, and that humor came out in his broadcasts. I didn't get a chance to see a ton of his games because usually he was doing the second game on Hockey Night in Canada, but whenever I did watch him, it was a trip because he was always cracking jokes, but he was always bringing, his expertise of the game in every broadcast. So it's sad because 74 is not old anymore, and condolences to his family on his passing.
Jim, I know that Garrett, I believe, worked briefly in Edmonton as well. So just wondering if you had any just sort of reflections on his legacy.
Yeah, he was with Edmonton, Calgary, and then Vancouver. And I wasn't fortunate enough to officially meet him. I did see him a couple of times, and he always was really happy. Like, he just came across as a guy who was just super friendly, very happy all the time. One of the things I admire most about him, and what I remember getting into this industry, was that we're sort of taught as journalists and stuff to not really be fans of the team that you're covering. You're supposed to be unbiased. You're supposed to go in. John Garrett was a fan of the Vancouver Canucks. Like, when he did those broadcasts, he was absolutely, lack of a better term, he was a homer for the Canucks. But that's what made him so beloved. Like, people really understood that part about what he was doing when he was calling those games. Like, he really loved the Vancouver Canucks. And while anybody else might not have been able to get away with that, John Garrett was so nice and so friendly and so beloved that he could pull that off, and you still loved that part about what he did with his job. And so that made me kind of go into this whole thing and go, you know what, I could still be a fan of the team, be impartial, be unbiased, and do my job, but still appreciate the game I'm watching, appreciate the team that I grew up loving, and stuff like that. And he lets you get away with that, right? So that was one of the things I really admired about him, was that you could watch him, he could do his job, he could be a professional, but you knew he was a fan. Like, you just knew he loved the Canucks. And so that was what was really the most cool part about getting to watch him do what he did.
And I think, like you said, it came across as a genuine fandom. It wasn't just, oh, I'm paid by the team to stump for the team. You could tell he really felt that way. So certainly a lasting legacy and a sad day as we remember him here at the Hockey News. Of course, if you want to read any more about John Garrett, his legacy, or any of the other topics, storylines, players, teams, playoff matchups that we've talked about today, please head over to the Hockey News. It has been the go-to for all things hockey since 1947. 12 issues packed with game and player insights, plus a free issue to start is a must-have for any fan. Head to thn.com/free and grab your subscription today. That is going to do it for today's episode of the Wraparound. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in and listened to us talking some hockey today. We really do appreciate it. We will be back with an all-new episode on Thursday, but for now, for Michael Augello and Jim Parsons, I'm Emma Lingan. This is the Wraparound, and we will see you next time.